Okay, we're going to talk about how to compress photographs to work well within your website. When you first get a photograph, whether it's purchasing it from a website such as iStock or Shutterstock, or if it just came out of your camera, it is already way too large dimensionally and file size. So we need to resize it for both of those. Dimensionally, we need to make it a little bit smaller, and the file size we need to make a lot smaller. Typically, an image out of a camera is maybe around 3.5 megabytes, sometimes more, depending on what your settings are. And that's just way too big. You should never have a photograph or any graphic on your website even at 1 megabyte or even up around there. Even the largest photos you might use, which would be in the hero area of a web page or the top of a web page, spanning the full width of the website, should be probably down 300K or even lower if you can do it. I'm going to show you a free way of doing this using a tool called Irfanview. That's IRFAN View, VIEW. And I'll show you how to get the tool in a minute. First, we're going to start out with this photograph. This came out of my camera, so it's big. Right down here, you can see that the dimensions of the file are 3,872 pixels by 2,592 pixels. And the file size right here is 3.24 megabytes. So we said that that's just too big all the way around. So we have to resize it, and then we have to compress it. And we're going to do all of that while trying to maintain the quality of the image. Now, it doesn't have to be as sharp as like if you were printing the photo, because it's going onto a website. It's only going to be viewed on a screen. And generally, unless somebody has a special tool or is purposefully trying to enlarge the view of the image, people are not going to magnify these photos. So we have room to compress an image and allow the quality of the photo to degrade a little bit, but not really perceptively. So that's what we're going to do here. Now, first off, just from my experience, I'm going to tell you that a hero image, and again, the hero image is the large image that you see at the top of usually the home page of a website, but sometimes you find them on every page. They usually run the full width of the browser. Those images do not need to be any wider than 1,800 pixels. And I'm just putting that number out there. I don't have a hard and fixed rule for the size of the width. I'm just thinking about generally a common size screen, and also the fact that most of the monitors these days are high resolution. So we want the image to be larger than the dimensions of the browser viewport. In other words, larger than what you can see in the website, but not so large as to be just, not benefiting the website itself. So I just generally use the number 1,800. It can go lower than that. It could even be 1,200, 1,300. It just depends on the image. But for demonstration's sake, I'm going to go to 1,800 wide. And I'm also going to tell you that the dimensions for a hero image are usually they keep the width, but they're fairly short. Like this image here is already too tall for the dimensions that go into a hero area. So I'm going to go ahead and crop it probably here and a little bit off here. So it's going to become a little bit shorter just in the image itself, but then we're going to also resize the dimensions, keeping the aspect ratio, meaning preventing it from being distorted. So in Irfanview, I have this image open. The first thing I'm going to do is resize the whole image. So I'm going to go to the image menu and down to where it says resize and resample. It'll pop up with the initial measurements of the image itself, and there's all kinds of settings in here, and you can just leave these settings as is. And in fact, now that I've said 1,800, I'm looking at these numbers and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to take this down. I'm just going to use one of the predefined sizes. Now, we have, and it's super important to have this box checked, preserve aspect ratio, which means it's not going to get distorted. If I change the width, the height will change appropriately. So I could put in some number here. I could put in 1800 here, and this number for the height would change accordingly. But now that I'm looking at these, I'm even going to take it down to 1280. Now, 720 is not going to necessarily be the height for this image. In fact, I know it won't be. But what it'll do is it'll for sure make the width 1280 pixels, and the height will fall where it needs to fall in accordingly. So if I click 1280 by 720, here it shows me the new size, 1280 by 857 pixels. So it gives preference to the width, which is really what we want. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And now the image has been resized, and if you come down in the lower left here, you can see that it is now 1280 pixels by 857 pixels. One thing I want to do now before I move on is I'm going to crop the height of it a little bit, as I had mentioned before, and this is super easy. You just click on the outer edge of the image about where you want to start to have the image. What you want to do is draw this box just by clicking and dragging to be what you want in the image, and everything outside this box is going to get cropped out. I'm going to go about to there. Now go ahead and make the crop. We go to Edit and hit Crop Selection. And there you go, super easy, right? So now our image is 1279 by 631. So the next thing we need to do is actual compression. The file compression that we want to do is going to take place when we save the image, because all photographs should always be saved as JPEGs, never PNG. PNG files are more for illustrations or images that maybe have a mix of text and photos within it, but mostly it's for illustration type graphics. Photographs are massive as PNGs. The file size just goes really high, and they don't tend to look as good either if you're looking at details. So JPEG is always for photographs. So we're going to go ahead to the File menu, and we're going to hit Save As, and I'm going to save it into the same folder, but instead of having the file, the name that was given by my camera, this is something you want to think about with SEO. You don't want to leave the file name something like this. This is horrible. But you want it to pertain to the information on the page that it's going to live. So if I were a garden nursery business, I might do, I don't know what these are, but yellow daisies. They're not daisies. I don't know what they are. My name, Cervaca Farms. How's that? And also notice that the file type is JPG, which is what we want. And another window has popped up. This is where the compression happens. I would not mess with any of the settings that come up by default. The only thing we care about here is the quality. So you have this save quality, you've got low, which is 1, and good or high, which is 100, and then just various numbers in between. So these numbers, I'm not entirely sure what they stand for. They're not really a percentage or anything like that. It's just a measurement within the program. I find that anywhere between 55 and 65, depending on the image, works really well. And what you want to do is get as low as possible without degrading the image too much. Unfortunately, this program, as far as I can tell, does not have a preview. So unlike in Photoshop, where if I put it down to 1, you would be able to see the degradation before you actually saved it. And you could get it just to that number that you want and visually see it. But we don't have that option here. But I will tell you, anything between 55 and 65 is really good. We can even just say, hey, let's go to 65 just to be safe. And we're going to compress this even after this. We have one more compression step after this. But changing the quality of the JPEG is going to cut information out. Once that information has been compressed, it's essentially being removed from the image, and that is going to allow the file size to go down from 3.24 megabytes. We'll just see what happens. So let's go ahead and click Save in the main window here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change over into the folder where these images reside. Here's the original image. We can see as I mouse over it that it is the full size, the dimensions that it was in 3.23 megabytes. And here's the new one. It's slightly cropped and a lot smaller with the new file name. This one is now 1279 by 631 pixels. And what that means, we saved it as 1280. I must have cropped 1 pixel off the width. I wasn't exact with my little box that I drew, but that's fine. But look at the file size, 132 kilobytes. What a big difference. Now let's view them and compare the quality. First of all, I got to change the view here. When you go into the display options under View, you can either have the window fit to the image or the image fit to the window. It just depends on what you're trying to see and do here. So I just made it so that this image will fit in the window. This is the original image and we're at 51% view size, but I'm going to go ahead and switch to the other one. Now this is at 200%. It made it fit to the window, but it's a smaller dimension. So let me take it to 100, approximately 100% view. And this is what people are going to see. Now it looks like, oh, I've got all this space on the sides of the image, but that's not how it's going to be once you put it into your website. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. And I have 2 of those open. Now I go to this website called Tinypng. And they have a plugin, but I don't use the plugin. I use another one called Smush. But I really like their website for getting an extra little bit of compression from my image before I upload it to my website. So all you have to do, go to tinypng.com. And yes, I know it says PNG, but they also do JPEGs. We're going to grab our new image, our new version of the image, and all you have to do is drag it onto the web page. And it does compression. Look at this. 136 was the original size of our new image, and they compressed it down to 66.3 kilobytes. That's from 3.2 megabytes. So this is a major savings. And I'll tell you something else. Google and any kind of speed tests or grading tools out there for your website will recognize an image. If I had just put this image up at 136, it may come back and say, hey, this file could still be compressed even more. And it will actually give you a little ding and on your website, and not a sound, but just a ding against you in your scoring. Google can recognize when images can be more compressed than they are. And of course, larger images will slow the website view down, and that hits against your SEO score. So super important to do these things. All right, I'm going to go ahead and download the new version here. I'm going to go ahead and open this in its folder. So I'm right-clicking, Show in Folder. This is my Downloads folder. So here's the file, Yellow Daisy Cervaca Farms JPEG with the new file size. I'm not going to overwrite the one we had exported from Irfanview because I just want you to be able to see all 3. Normally I would just overwrite this one, but I'm going to go ahead and rename this with COMP for compression, I guess. Now I can click and drag it over into the folder, and we have all 3. Here's the original. Okay, so this is the one right out of Irfanview. And believe it or not, I just switched to the one we just extra compressed on the Tinypng website. You couldn't even see the difference. I'm going back and forth between them, if you can hear me clicking. But you can't see the difference. So that's pretty amazing, I think. Now this image is ready to be uploaded to a website. All right, now to find Irfanview, it's a free program and it always has been. I've been using it for probably 14 years, maybe, yeah, about that long. And he keeps improving this. The guy's name is actually Irfan. Here he is here. He has always made this program free. It has always only been for the PC, and I don't see that changing at all. And it is just fabulous. You can view any file formats, any kind of graphic image formats, and videos as well. So I use it as, I set it up as the default for any image viewing I do on my website. I'm sorry, on my computer. So going right to the homepage, you can learn about it here. And I would say you have the choice between 32-bit and 64-bit. If your computer is new within, even the last 4 years, not that new, but the last 4 years, you can probably handle 64-bit. Otherwise, get the 32-bit version. If you're not sure, you can look at your computer settings and see which program you should have. But mine is definitely for 64-bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just click download. It downloaded the .exe file. So I already have the program on my computer. I'm not going to click that. But all you would have to do is click that. And just like any other program, it starts installing. It walks you through a couple questions that are very standard, like where do you want to place the program, and then you're good to go. So I hope this was helpful, and if you do want to learn how to do this in Photoshop, check out my other video, Image Optimization with Photoshop. All right, thank you, and good luck.